Hello and welcome. In today's lesson, we'll read an interesting and funny story, Mullah Nasreddin and the Nail. This story is taken from Extraordinary Adventures of Mullah Nasreddin. Extraordinary Adventures of Mullah Nasreddin is a collection of witty and funny stories. In these stories, the main character is Mullah Nasreddin, whose full name was Mullah Nasreddin Hoja. He is believed to be born in 13th century in Turkey. A Nasruddin story usually has a subtle humor and a pedagogic nature. Pedagogic means relating to teaching. The International Nasruddin Hoja festival is celebrated between the 5th and the 10th of July in his hometown every year. In India, a television program was also made which was released in 1990 on Doordarshan in Hindi. The role of Mullah Nasruddin was played by Raghubir Yadav, who was seen with his donkey Fidhu. The show was directed by Amal Allana, the music was by Louis Banks, and the script was written by S. M. Mehendi. Now let's read the chapter. Mullah Nasreddin was a local priest in a small village who lived in extreme poverty. No one knew whether he was a madman or a sage because his ways were so unconventional. His mind was so engaged in spiritual pursuits that he never took time to think about his material comfort. The debts accumulated and his credit quickly vanished until eventually he had no alternative but to sell his ancestral home. Nasruddin's neighbor was a crooked man with a large bushy mustache, and he knew all about the man's financial difficulties. He thought he could take advantage of the situation. "I want to help you, good neighbor. I will buy the house from you, even though I don't really have any interest in it." Before the explanation of the passage, let's understand the meaning of the difficult words. Unconventional, different from the usual. Material, worldly. Dates, money owed. Accumulate, to overcome over a period of time. Alternative, that you can use, do, etc. instead of something else. Ancestral, related to one's forefathers. Crooked, not honest. Mullah Nasreddin is a poor priest in a village. He is different from other people. He is so busy in remembering God that he does not care about anything. When he needs something, he borrows from others. But now nobody even lends him because he has not paid what he has already borrowed. He finds that now the time has come to sell his house that his forefathers built. His neighbor, who is clever and dishonest, comes to meet him. He pretends to care for him. He says he will buy his house, though he does not want. He just wants to help him. The man offered a pitiful price. Mullah Nasreddin looked delighted and drew a small piece of paper from the folds of his clothing. "God bless you with long life and health, progeny," for his generous gesture. "The house shall be yours as soon as we take care of this little clause in the contract." "What clause?" asked the neighbor suspiciously. "Only a very small thing. This house was built by my father, a fine gentleman he was, always paid in cash. And you see here on the wall of the living room, there is one nail sticking out. My father never had the chance to finish hammering it in. He had a heart attack and died. God rest his soul." The neighbor looked as contrite as he could. "I therefore request that I be allowed to keep ownership of that nail and do whatever I want with it." The neighbor agreed but explained that he would have to consult his wife before signing. Difficult words. Progeny, one's children. Gesture, something that you do that shows other people what you think or feel. Clause, part of an agreement. Sticking out, being easily seen. Contrite, to be sorry for something. Ownership, the state of owning something. He offers him a very low price. He knows that Mullah will have to sell it because he is in great need. Mullah becomes happy and brings a piece of paper. He says that he will sell the house, but he wants to add something extra to the agreement. The neighbor asks him what he wants. Mullah says that the house was built by his father, who is no more. But he remembers that there is a nail that can be seen on the wall. His father was too busy to hammer that in. He says he wants that nail to be his even after the house is sold. The neighbor says he needs to consult to his wife regarding this. His wife raised some serious objections. Why is going to keep a nail? What does it mean? He just wants to be allowed to keep and worship his nail from time to time. That's all. He's crazy. Maybe so, but we are getting the house for half its value. So, what's the problem if he wants to keep a small nail? The wife finally relented. The contract was signed and Mullah Nasreddin moved out. A month went by. One evening they heard a knock on the door. It was Nasreddin with head bowed. "Oh, Mullah, where have you been? We were wondering about you," lied the crooked man. Nasreddin explained that he had come to worship his nail, and the man agreed to let him into the house. Difficult words, objections, reasons why you are against something or somebody. Relent, to finally agree to something that you had refused. Bow, to bend your head as a sign of respect. When his neighbor Aslam goes to his wife and tells about it, her wife does not agree. The neighbor tries to make her to agree for it. He asks what the problem is, if he allows for the nail worship. Finally, he becomes successful to convince her. He signs the contract and the deal gets made. They start living in the house. Then after a month, the mullah comes to worship the nail. The neighbor asks how and where he has been for these days. He pretends to be his well-wisher and lets him in to worship his nail. The mullah humbly walked behind the man, bowed in front of the nail and put his turban on it. As he was about to leave, the man questioned him. Hey, what's that doing there?" "That's my turban." "Yes, but you can't leave it in my house." "Of course I can," said the mullah as he headed towards the door. "It's on my nail." 2 weeks passed before Mullah Nasreddin's next visit. Good morning, Mullah. You have come to take back your turban, I presume." "No, thank you, my dear friend. I have come to worship my nail." Once again he bowed before the nail, and, his worship finished, he hung a scarf on the nail along with his turban and turned to leave. The crooked man was not amused, but there was nothing he could do when Nasreddin claimed he was worshipping his dead father's nail. The man twirled the end of his mustache and persuaded himself that this would be the last time, if only because there was nothing more the mad mullah could possibly hang on the nail. Difficult words. Head, to move in a direction mentioned. Presume, to suppose. Worship, to pray to or show respect to. Twirl, to turn round. The mullah, in a very polite manner, goes to his nail. He worships his nail, and when leaving, he leaves his turban on the nail. The neighbor objects and says he cannot let him leave his turban in his house. The mullah says that he can do anything with his nail because the nail belongs to him. Thus he leaves the house. After 2 weeks, the mullah again comes. The neighbor becomes happy because he thinks that the mullah has come to take his turban back. The mullah worships the nail and hangs his scarf also on the nail. Seeing this, the neighbor becomes very angry, but he knows he cannot do anything. According to the agreement, the nail belongs to the mullah and he can do anything with it. But this idea relieves him a little that this is his last time because there is no more room on the nail to hang anything else. He slammed the door behind the departing pilgrim and hoped his wife wouldn't be too angry. A week later, Mullah Nasreddin returned and bowed towards the nail. Before turning to leave, he took off his coat and hung it on the nail along with the hat and the scarf. The wife was furious and she upbraided her husband. Now look what he's done. He's taking advantage of our kindness. No, advantage of your weakness. But what can I do? The unhappy husband chewed at the ragged end of his mustache. We agreed that he can do whatever he wants with his nail. But fear not, wife, now the nail is full. The next day, Mullah Nasreddin showed up again. The man tried to shut the door in his face when he saw who it was, but Nasreddin had already placed his foot inside. Nothing was going to stop him from worshipping his nail. Difficult words. Slam. To shut something very loudly and with great force. Upbraid. To scold. Advantage. Something that brings you good result. As soon as the mullah goes out, Aslam the neighbor shuts the door angrily. After a week, the mullah again comes to worship. This time he hangs his coat, hat and scarf on the nail. The wife of Aslam becomes very angry. She rebukes her husband and says, "The mullah is doing this all because he thinks that you are kind enough to tolerate this all. No, I think you seem very weak to him. That's why he is doing this all." Aslam says he cannot do anything, as according to the contract, he can do anything he wishes. He says that the mullah cannot do any longer as the nail is already occupied and there is no more space on it. The very next day, Mullah Nasreddin again comes. No sooner does Aslam try to shut the door in his face, he already enters the house. Now the neighbor feels hopeless as he finds that he cannot do anything or stop him from worshipping the nail. "Oh God, you again! I do hope this is the last time." He tugged at the hair on his upper lip. "Possibly," replied Nasreddin with his usual benign smile. He entered, dragging behind him a sack full of cow dung as he proceeded to hang it on his nail. The wife went red with rage and screamed at her husband, "Get that out of my house or I am leaving you." The husband protested vehemently, "Mullah Nasreddin, this is going too far. We cannot have that." Difficult words. Benign, kind, rage, a feeling of violent anger that is out of control. Vehemently, strongly. Aslam asked the mullah if this is his last time. The mullah smiles and says, "Maybe." He goes to his nail and hangs the sack of cow dung on it that he has brought with him. Seeing this drama, the wife becomes very angry and warns her husband that she'll leave him if this all does not stop. Aslam objects this act of mullah strongly and says, "It's enough. We cannot tolerate this all anymore." "But you signed the contract, good neighbor." "Well, we'll see about that. Let us have the council of elders make a ruling." Soon an assembly of all the wise men of the village had been convened, and the neighbor explained the situation while smearing the few wisps of his once bristling mustache across his upper lip, as though the sprouts of his hair offended him. The mullah simply presented the contract without uttering a word in his defense. The wise man studied it carefully and eventually pronounced that the mullah was perfectly entitled to do as he wished with his nail. There was nothing in the contract that restricted how the nail should be worshipped. The case was therefore dismissed and the neighbor went home dejected. After long arguments with his wife and a sleepless night, he begged the mullah to buy his house back at a bargain price. Nasreddin agreed and they moved out as quickly as possible. The mullah once again was able to enjoy his house and his nail, having made a tidy sum of money. Difficult words. Convene. To come together for a formal meeting. Wisps. thin pieces. Pronounce, to declare. Entitled, had a right to. When Aslam objects, the mullah reminds him of the clause of the agreement. They both decide that they should take the matter to the elders of the village. A meeting is held, all the elders come to solve the matter. The neighbor of the mullah tells all the matter to them. He looks to be angry with the mullah. Mullah does not say even a word. He only shows the contract to the elders. The elders read the contract carefully and find that the mullah has done nothing against the agreement. According to the agreement, he has right to worship the nail in the manner he likes. The case gets dismissed. The neighbor comes back home disappointed. He talks with his wife and they both decide that they should sell the house back to the mullah. The mullah buys his house back at the lower price than he sold. Thus he again gets his house back and lives happily. Let's quickly see the summary of the chapter. Mullah Nasreddin is a Muslim priest in a village. He is spending his days in poverty. He is always so busy in meditating God that he does not care about his prosperity. When he needs anything, he borrows from others. But now people deny to give anything because he has already borrowed a lot. He finds no option but to sell his house. When this news his neighbor knows, he decides he will take advantage of this chance. His neighbor Aslam is a very cunning fellow. He comes to the mullah and buys his house almost half its price. But before giving his house, the mullah makes him to sign a contract. According to this contract, a nail on the wall of house belongs to the mullah and he is allowed to worship it. After a month of sale, the mullah starts coming to worship the nail time to time. It really irritates his neighbor. He starts hanging his belongings also on the nail. The neighbor's wife becomes very angry and wants to leave him if he does not do anything to stop it. The matter is taken before the council of elders in the village. According to the agreement, it is found that the nail belongs to mullah and he is free to do anything with it. When the neighbor sees that he has no option, he sells the house back to the mullah at lower price than he bought. Thus the mullah gets his house back as well as he makes a sum of money too. So this was the chapter Mullah Nasreddin and the Nail. I'm sure that this video has helped you a lot. Subscribe my channel, like and share the video. Thanks.